Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Flying Carpet and King Solomon. Apparently, King Solomon and, well, magic goes back a long ways, perhaps even down to the crypto-terrestrial and perhaps even relating to alien beings or other supernatural phenomena. We're going to be talking about that tonight, folks, or today. Either way, let me go to share screen and we'll look at artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs. So let me do this and we'll move on. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here's the Extreme 90s cover for my graphic novel, Scumdogs. My comic book is a living parody of cartoons from the 80s and 90s. My book, Scumdogs, is a parody book. I parody these cartoons and have a lot of fun. I think I repeated myself, didn't I? Either way, the Scumdogs want to take over the universe because they were booted from pro sports. Well, to be fair, superhuman pro sports played with monsters and gods in the far future. See, in the far future, thanks to advancements in science and magic, people can transform themselves into gods or monsters and compete for fame and fortune in superhuman sporting events. One of these superhuman sporting events held with superhuman monsters as the competitors, well, they were known as the Scumdogs Sports, where the Scumdogs take their name from. See, they were booted from these sporting events for being villains and idiots, and now they want to take over the universe. They kept calling themselves the Scumdogs, well, because they were idiots. Either way, they're led by Deathmug. Deathmug is the purple guy with the metal mask over here. He's a parody of various villains from 80s cartoons. If you notice, he has a skull for face that makes him look like Skeletor from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon, Skeletor being the archenemy of He-Man. He's purple like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and, well, he's got gold on him to basically symbolize Serpentor. Serpentor was one of the villains from G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. Either way, Deathmug's over the top arrogant and will not stop till he rules the universe. It's too bad he's got the IQ of a tuna, but he's equally as idiotic as the hero in the book. Our so-called hero, Buick Starpoon, the guy fighting Deathmug on this cover. Buick Starpoon, in contrast, is basically a parody of Duke from G.I. Joe, one of the main G.I. Joe characters, crossed over with Buck Rogers or Captain Kirk from Star Trek. Yeah. Buick Starpoon is over-the-top arrogant moron who thinks he's just as important as Deathmug, or at least better than Deathmug. Either way, think of him as Think of him as an even more idiotic version of Zap Brannigan from Futurama. He's the leader of the Wild Rangers and captains a starship. That's his special ability, or should I say his special skill. Because the Wild Rangers are G.I. Joe parodies, that means all of them have military specialties. That's their special skills and abilities. As I said, Buick Starpoon's a starship captain. You'll know all of the Wild Rangers because they'll all wear a similar uniform to Buick Starpoon's green and white uniform, how it looks like a Starfleet uniform from Star Trek. Yeah, that's it, because they're a parody of them. Over here, this guy with the mohawk and the navy blue and white uniform, his name is Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's a soldier from the U.S. Army. He was transferred over to the Wild Rangers to fight the Scumdogs. That's his military specialty, being a soldier from the U.S. Army. Then you have this bald guy down here with the gun and the blue and white uniform. I should probably stop doing this. I sound like Seth Rogen, don't I? This guy's known as Beach Pounder. His military specialty is that he's a Marine, from the Marines. He's a soldier from the Marines. Either way, he's now a Wild Ranger when he fights the Scumdogs. Then we have this guy back here in the red uniform. His name is Blast Tank, and, well, I keep laughing again. His military specialty is that he's a tanker. He drives around weaponized vehicles like tanks and stuff, and I'm sure that's going to be useful being on the crew of a starship flying through outer space. Either way, this cover here is one of 3 different variant covers you can back. That means you'll have a choice of 3 different covers you can back for your graphic novel of Scumdogs. Now, let's go over here and look at Girl Friday. She's a female member of the Wild Rangers. She's the lieutenant on the team and helps Buick Starpoon lead them. The thing is, she hates Buick Starpoon's guts. She hates all the Wild Rangers. She was assigned to the team to babysit them and make sure they do their jobs. Then we have Deathmug's henchmen, Murdermouth and Sloppy. Murdermouth is the blue guy with the top head up here, and Sloppy is the pink guy down here with shape-shifting powers. These guys are Deathmug's henchmen, because in all 80s cartoons, the main villain would have henchmen, who would be total morons. So I created these 2 guys to be Deathmug's morons. right there. And then we have Death Metal Doctor and Miss Breasty Melons. Now, these two characters are parodies of characters from G.I. Joe or Real American Hero who were part of their arch enemies Cobra, namely Dr. Mindbender and the Baroness. Dr. Mindbender was a mad scientist who invented weapons and machines for Cobra, just like Death Metal Doctor here was hired by the Scumdogs to invent weapons and machines for them to take over the universe. It's why he's not a monster. He was hired after they became villains. Either way, Dr. Mindbender in the original cartoon, he dressed like he was King Diamond, one of famous rock musicians. So I thought, why not create a musician who was a mad scientist? I thought that would be awesome as a villain, a hair metal musician, mad scientist. So we created Death Metal Doctor. Then we have Miss Breasty Melons, as I said, is a parody of the Baroness. The Baroness was joined up with Cobra because she was an incredibly rich woman who became a terrorist and wanted to help them take over the world. In contrast, Miss Breasty Melons is just an incredibly rich woman who was bored with her life. She only joined up with the Scumdogs just to have a little fun and use her vast fortune just to have a few lols. She dresses up in a female villain's spy cat suit because the only thing she has in common with the Baroness, who actually is a spy, is that, well, they're both hot women, and she thinks dressing up in a female villain's spy cat suit makes her look hot and evil. Really, she's just an idiot with too much money. That's Scumdogs, folks. Go back. It's up on Indiegogo. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. If you want to see this stream again, use the link on the pin tweet on my Twitter page at 777MegaChris1, and please share this video out. Now, let's go over here and look at some Indiegogos real quick. Now, we have, let's see, we have to look at tonight. Let me go down here, looking at a few books like this. Let's see. Oh, we have Maidens of Mayhem. Blue Bombshells, Pirate Queen, and Introducing the Sword Maidens Adults Only Adventure. Maidens of Mayhem, huh? Okay, we can take a quick look at this book, folks. So let's do so. Blue Bombshell, Pirate Queen, and Introducing the Sword Maidens Adult Only Adventure Comics. Featuring stories starring the Blue Bombshell, Pirate Queen, and the Sword Maidens. Blue Bombshell faces off against the Tromboner and the Pink Pussycat. Pirate Queen searches the galaxy for a legendary lost treasure and discover the origins of the Sword Maidens. Maidens of Mayhem is an adult comic book, so adults only. Maidens of Mayhem will be a 60-page full-color comic and will feature adult themes, adult language, and nudity. Maidens of Mayhem, 3 stories in one comic. So the artwork, it's been blurred out. So yeah, the artwork looks pretty good for this book. Looks like a classic 90s bad girl comic, so go back it. At least when it launches and stuff like that. It hasn't launched yet, but I'm assuming you can back this book for $25 so for Maidens of Mayhem. So go back this book. It's 60 plus pages, so it's basically a 3-issue series all in one book. So that looks pretty good as well. Yeah, it's going to look pretty good. 60-page full-color comic. So that's basically a 3-issue series right there, folks. Go back it. Maidens of Mayhem on Indiegogo when it launches. All right, let's go over here, folks, and look at another Indiegogo. Just a moment. Let the thing load again. Oh, there's that. We can also go down here. Let's see. Wonder Island 1. We could look at that. Star Noir Book 1. War Party. Let's see. Unconditional Shove is ended. It's fully funded. It's made $5,120. That's too bad. Let's see. We have books over here. Let's go look at this over here for a moment. Let me refresh this page and see if I can't get any other books to pop up. Just a moment. Here we go again. Now I'm trying to see if I can't get other books to show up on here and stuff like that. There's this. I think let me go look at Cyberfrog for a moment. His new, let's see, Frog. There. Let me get this up here, folks. I've yet to see this. All right, let's see. Cyberfrog, Ethan Van Sciver's Cyberfrog 3 Red Extermination. It's made $363 with $673. This is the first time I've covered this book, folks, sadly, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's got 2,622 backers, and it's made quite a bit of money. Oh, look at that artwork. It looks great. Hello, potential Indiegogo backers. Welcome to the campaign of fund of Cyberfrog 3 Red Extermination. Here's the story recapped. It's 2018, 20 years after the alien Vespids invasion. Cyberfrog has reunited with his friend Heather Swan, who is surviving the New Jersey Pine Barrens with her 10-year-old daughter Lily and others. After defending Heather and Lily against a vicious attack by Vespids murder hornet, by a Vespids murder hornet, Cyberfrog finds that he's brought down a huge consequence on the community. They belong to and upon himself. The secrets he's learned about the Vespids make every idea about humanity coexisting with them impossible. Left to die in one more stinging confrontation and having been robbed of everything they love, he and Heather at last find hope in an old friend's return. And now, Red Extermination. They've seen you. They've isolated you. And now comes the Swarm. Cyberfrog 3 Red Extermination is a long-awaited third installment of the Cyberfrog saga. It will be a 38-page long, and we can reach 100,000 in funding. It'll also have the same beautiful chromium cover the Bloodhoney and Wrecked Planet sported. We can do it. Art and story by me, Ethan Van Sciver. Colors by Kyle Ritter. Lettering by Eric Weathers. And look at the fantastic wraparound color by the legendary Dale Keown. Yeah, looks like one hell of a great-looking book. Salamandroid Poison Pact, the sequel to Salamandroid Death Sting. In 1998, Salamandroid accepts a dark partnership with one of his most monstrous foes. With his brother Tarek Wren in hibernation, Cybernation, Sal must navigate a world that has surrendered to the Vespids and fight hard to defend what's left of the fragile human race while negotiating for control against the Philadelphia cyber insect underworld. 20 pages of story and art by me, Ethan Van Sciver. Or should I say him, Ethan Van Sciver, made this book. Looks pretty good. 24-hour variant cover. Ooh, that looks good as well. I missed the cover, too bad, folks. Either way, you have a cover with a bunch of Cyberfrog's enemies on the cover. Eventually, they've been redesigned by Ethan Van Sciver to become even more awesome looking. Well, for the most part, the woman looks pretty much the same because she already had a pretty good design back then. But either way, I think her costumes are a bit different. Otherwise, you see Cyberfrog and his foes team up to fight the Vespids, or at least it looks like they're doing that. Yeah, looks pretty good. We also have this cover as well, and other covers as well. We have Cyberfrog and Salamandroid saving America and killing the Vespid. Cyberfrog action figures. You can also back in this campaign. Oh, we also have Cyberfrog PVC toy. I already have my PVC toy, and it looks pretty good. You can also get, Executive Red Extermination box. Yeah, this looks pretty good. Ooh, I think I need to go on, folks. You can back Cyberfrog 3 Red Extermination for $25. I need to get onto my campaign. I need to get onto this live streaming, tell you about this story right here. Let's see if it can. Yeah, come on. Here we are. The magical flying carpet of King Solomon. Clues lead to UFOs and subterrestrials. Is it possible that, back in the Bible, that the King Solomon and the magical powers he possessed came from subterrestrials or even alien beings? Is that the truth of the matter? Or are there other things as well to consider? All of these theories are very interesting, and we're going to be taking a look at them tonight. So is it possible King Solomon had help from, aliens or crypto-terrestrials or the such? That's what we're going to be talking about. Let me go over here. We have one watching right now. Not too bad. We have, let me refresh this page and stuff like that. Yeah. Not doing too bad. Let's get into this article. Anyone who has watched Disney's animated film Aladdin knows a thing or two about magical flying carpets. And why they are a must-have for those who have just fallen in love and are being chased around by goons. However, the original story of Aladdin and the 1001 Nights collection of Middle Eastern folktales compiled in Arabic did not have any flying carpets. That's right. It was a Disney invention and quite skillfully inserted into the tale. One must add, but there is another story in the 1001 Nights called A Prince Ahmed and the Flying Parapanu, where a flying carpet has been described in detail. This story, like many others in the collection, was set in medieval India. Sir Richard Francis Burton, in his translation of the Arabic text, writes that a sultan of India had asked his three sons to bring back to him the most wonderful object in the world. The winner would wed a beautiful princess whom they all adored. Prince Hussein, the eldest son, journeyed to the wonderful land of Bashingath, i.e. Basanga of that's Vinaragara. I think I've heard about this story as well. Yeah, the three men who basically wanted to wed this princess princes, all three of them had different abilities. One was smart, one was fast, the other one had great physical strength. All of them basically went on a journey to basically get the most wonderful object for the sultan to marry the princess. It's a very interesting story, and I think I originally read it. They don't mention about the special abilities the princess had because, well, one was a street fighter, one was a smart as hell, and another was just fleet of foot. So they all had special abilities, or at least nearly superhuman abilities. But it kind of comes off that they were in this original story that they were superhuman, but more or less they were probably just very skilled fighters. Either way, it was an original story, and it does mention magical objects in the original story. Now, it's a very interesting tale. But let's read a bit more of the article because I'm pretty sure they weren't going to mention that much of the original story. I'm just giving you a heads up there. A highly prosperous kingdom of Scythian India. They journeyed to the wonderful land of Bashinganath, i.e. Basinga or Vijayanagara, a highly prosperous kingdom of southern India. At the bustling exotic marketplace, our merchant offered to sell Prince Hussein a carpet, some 4 yards square, for the princely sum of 30,000 gold coins. When the prince asked the dealer what special virtue the carpet has to demand such an exorbitant price, he replied, "Its properties are singular and marvelous. Whoever sitteth on this carpet in wealth, in thought to be taken up and set down upon other sight, will in the twinkling of an eye be born thither to that place, nor near hand or distant, many a day's journey and difficult to reach." Yeah, literally. And that's the way this was written in the story, folks. Yeah. If you basically sit on this carpet, sitteth on it as it's written, and then willeth the carpet up, you'll be taken up and set down upon the other sight. Well, that will be in the twinkling of an eye, and born thither to be that place. It'll be near hand or distant, many a day's journey, and difficult to reach. That is, if the journey is difficult to reach, you'll be flown there with ease on this magic flying carpet. Just trying to translate there, folks, because this is written basically this is a transcript from the original story from the 1001 Nights, or should I say, the original story where Aladdin, this story comes from, and stuff like that. So there's that as well. Now we have 2 watching. All right, before I continue, we have 3 watching, and we have 4 watching. Not too bad. Now let's go over here now. The dealer offered the prince to test out the carpet by spreading it out on the ground after both of them sat on it, and the prince wished to visit the caravan cereals. I guess the caravan cereals. I don't know. I know I can read caravan here, but I don't know what this word is. Caravan series. Caravan cereals? Let's just say he's to visit the caravans from where he came to Bisingath. Oh, I get it. Yeah. So I guess it's this to visit the caravan series. Is that his home? Is that what this is? What this word is? It says caravan seras. I'm not quite sure. It's either his home or something like that. It says from where he came to Bisingath. Bisingar, I should say. The twain were at once transported as though borne by the throne of Solomon to the Khan. Okay, Sir Francis Burton mentions a similar tale is recorded in Icelandic legends compiled by Powell and Magnusian. The story was probably taken there by Arabian or Persian traders. The Icelandic version tells us who made the flying carpet, a dwarf with magical prowess, Oh, those dwarfs again, childless, playful creatures prone to becoming vindictive when offended. In Norse legends, they are described as a wise and skillful folk who live in caves deep below the ground and fashion magical devices from the precious metals of the underworld. As per the Icelandic version of the tale, the second son of the king travels across the world in search of a wonderful gift for the girl he wished to marry and reaches a populated city. Let's read this excerpt from this story right here, folks. He heard that there lived a short, short way from the town, a dwarf, the cleverest maker of curious and cunning things. He therefore resolved to go to the dwarf in order to try whether he could be persuaded to make him any costly thing. The dwarf said that he had ceased to make things of that kind for the prince. Oh, he ceased to make things of that sort now, and he must beg to be excused from making anything, of the kind for the prince. But he said that he had a piece of cloth made in his younger days, with which, however, he was willing yet unwilling to part. The king's son asked the nature and use of the cloth. The dwarf answered, on this cloth one can go all over the world, as well through the air as on the water. Runes, i.e. Germanic script, are on it, which must be understood by him who uses it. The prince was truly glad to have got the cloth, for it was not only a cloth of great value, but also the greatest of treasures in other respects, having gold seams and jewel embroidery. It sounds like that's an interesting little tale right there, isn't it? So this part comes from this original Islamic tale that basically mirrors this other story from India and stuff like that, or should I say from 1001 Arabian Tales. So originally these stories basically seem to have some. Well, these stories basically both stories come from an original story, basically that came from some other older story and stuff like that. Literally, I bet these two stories came from some older tale that was told thousands of years ago, and then they were both spun into the different cultures that the story was told to. One in Arabia and one in Sweden. So yeah. So where did this original tale come from with this flying carpet, and why does this tale have so many similarities with the other tales in other countries? So what was the original source of the original story of both tales? I have to ask. I'm kind of curious. Where did it come from? I want to know. Because it's very interesting. I mean, let's see, because the original tale sounds like it might have been even more bizarre and maybe even more mythic from what I can tell, because the original stories basically have elements of even weird things in them, because both tales have different elements in them, and both of them what I'm trying to say is both stories seem to have elements from even weirder and more ancient esoteric things in them. So why did one story have one element with a dwarf, and another element only had basically a guy traveling to this mythical city? So why is that? So what would the original story look like, I have to ask? Would it be even more bizarre and more out there and more mythical? I want to know. Either way, let's continue with this article. Scholars agree that the source of the legend of the flying carpet goes back to the time of King Solomon, who possessed a wonderful flying carpet. Solomon, the son of David, was the third king of Israel, an exceedingly wise person. He ruled for 40 years from 971 to 931 BCE. Because of his wisdom, the reign was rewarded with peace and unprecedented riches. As per the Jewish Encyclopedia, his realm is described by the rabbis as having extended before his fall over the upper world. Inhabited by the angels and over the whole of the terrestrial globe, with all of its inhabitants, including all the beasts, fowls, and reptiles, as well as the demons and spirits. His control over the demons, spirits, and animals augmented his splendor, the demons bringing him precious stones besides water from distant countries to irrigate his exotic plants. It is possibly because of his association with the demons and spirits that Solomon seems to have access to unusual means of traveling through the sky. The Jewish Encyclopedia states Solomon was accustomed to ride through the air on a large eagle, which brought him in a single day to Tadmar in the wilderness. This is reminiscent of ancient Hindu legends in which Lord Krishna, it's actually Lord Krishna, travels on the back of a large eagle called Garuda. Regarding Solomon's flying carpet, the Jewish Encyclopedia has more to tell us. When God appointed Solomon king over every created thing, he gave him a large carpet, 60 miles long and 60 miles wide, made of green silk interwoven with pure gold and ornamented with figured decorations, surrounded by 4 princes, Asaph Barakara, prince of men, Ramarant, prince of the demons, a lion, prince of beasts, and an eagle, prince of birds. When Solomon sat upon the carpet, he was caught up by the wind and sailed through the air so quickly that he breakfasted at Damascus and supped in Media, or should I say Medea. Okay, that's interesting. The size of Solomon's carpet at a humongous 3,600 square miles is bigger than many modern provinces of Israel, which indicates that it is either a grossly exaggerated figure of the mile, or the mile of those days was much smaller, that of the present day. Much smaller than that of the present day. The speed of the carpet appears to be less than that of today's commercial airliners. The distance between Damascus and Ecbatana, one of the primary cities of Media in northwestern Iran, is around 1,400 kilometers. And if this distance was covered by Solomon between breakfast and supper, then we can deduce that the speed of the flying carpet was possibly around 200 kilometers per hour. Assuming the travel time of around 7 hours, of course, it could have been faster than that as well, since a flying carpet does not have an external covering. The wind force would have been considerable at that speed and would not have made for a very comfortable flight. As per the comfortable flight. As per the Jewish Encyclopedia one day, Solomon was filled with pride at his own greatness and wisdom. And as a punishment, therefore, the wind shook the carpet, throwing down 40,000 men. Solomon chided the wind for the mischief it had done, but the latter rejoined that the king would do well to turn toward God and cease to be proud. Whereupon Solomon felt greatly ashamed. The rabbis seem to have delighted in inventing stories that tried to convey the moral message that a king should not be proud of his wealth and prowess. In one such story, Solomon was sailing over a valley where there were many swarms of ants. Solomon placed the queen of the ants upon his hand and asked her whether there was anyone in the world greater than he. The ants replied that she was much greater, otherwise God would not have sent him there to place her upon his hand. The king, greatly angered, threw her down, saying, "Dost thou know who I am? I am Solomon, the son of David." She answered, "I know that thou art created as a corrupted drop. That you are created as a corrupted drop. Therefore thou oughtst not to be proud." Solomon was filled with shame and fell on his face. I get it. "I know thou art created or of a corrupted drop. Therefore thou oughtst not to be proud." Solomon was filled with shame and fell on his face. Yeah, because of the first sin, right? Okay, and so he shouldn't be proud because he was king. And maybe this queen of ants, should be basically more proud of him. I mean, be more proud than him, at least. Hard to say. I mean, she's still a queen after all, even if she's the queen of ants. All right, so very interesting. Solomon apparently traveled far and wide on his flying carpet, if we are to go by the legends and beliefs of a desperate nations. The Suleiman Mountains, also known as Kohen Solomon, i.e. Mountains of Solomon, are a range located to the west of the Indus River Valley in Balkhistrian Pakistan. The most well-known peak of the Suleiman Mountains is the Taq-e-Suleiman. Suleiman. Like I said before, or I can hardly say this word, Suleiman, or Throne of Solomon, at 3,487 meters, 11,440 feet. As per local legends, King Solomon used to land on top of the mountain on his flying carpet, and the jinns carried boulders from here for the construction of his temple. Some say that the fabled gold mines of Solomon, the biblical Ophir, which had yielded 34 tons of gold for the kingdom of Israel, is hidden somewhere in these mountains. That's a very out there story, don't you think, folks? It is quite likely, however, that these stories were conceived during the Arab conquests of the region, for Solomon was highly venerated by the Arabs, who regarded him as a messenger of God. I guess. Very, very, very out there story. The Throne of Solomon is a natural platform about 14 feet below the summit. Okay, that's very cool as well. That's very interesting. Below the summit of Khor-e-Solomon, on the side of a sheer rock face, Balkhistrian Pakistan's. This is a picture of the mountain of the Throne of Solomon and stuff like that, or basically the mountain of Suleiman. Here's a guy on it basically taking a photo and stuff like that. Okay. Another place associated with Solomon is in Iran. The Tuq-e Solomon, or Throne of Solomon, is an archaeological site in the west of Azerbaijan, province of Iran, built during the Sassanid period. It used to be a sacred site of Zoroastrianism. The site received its biblical name after the Arab invasion of Iran. In the 7th century, folk legends relate that the King Solomon used to imprison monsters inside a nearby 100-meter deep, crater called Zindan-e-Solomon. Okay, i.e., Prison of Solomon, a place with a similar name also exists in, Kyrgyzstan, if I mispronounce these names, folks, I'm very sorry. Kyrgyzstan Suleiman Rock of Suleiman Mountain is a sacred rock in the city of Ush in Kyrgyzstan, which has been a place of Muslim pilgrimage for centuries. It contains a shrine which supposedly marks Solomon's grave. All right. That's a very, very interesting story. I keep saying that because I'm trying to find the words here to say, folks. That is a very phenomenal story. So King Solomon ruled the world. Basically, everyone venerated him. He had a flying carpet, at least it's said in the original text, it was gigantic. But his story basically seems to have aspects to other stories with flying carpets as well. So is it possible over the years that the Jewish people altered this story from an original text? Because it does seem like even the Great Flood story, basically in the various texts of it and mentions of it, basically there's a flood story all over the world, and various people even mention flying carpets all over the world. So is it possible these original stories came from a singular source, is what I'm saying, folks. And over the years, it's been altered basically for people in various countries in their own mythologies and stuff like that. I'm saying, what about the original story? Is it even more weird and more outlandish than the stories we've already read about, folks? That is what I'm trying to say. Either way, let's continue. Before I do, though, let me go over here. We have 6 watching. That's great, folks. We have 7 watching. We have 8 watching. Another great live stream, folks. Sit back and enjoy the flying carpet and King Solomon as we talk about King Solomon and the whys and hows over the years that this story of flying carpets and mythical beings have related to mankind. How they could basically be, well, I guess, related to maybe alien beings or even cryptoterrestrials, beings who live inside the earth. Because earlier I mentioned how there was a dwarf who created a flying carpet, i.e., he's one of the cryptoterrestrials. So why in mythology do all these desperate cultures, all these separate cultures, have mentions of flying carpets and magical beings and how they relate to each other? Do they come from a singular source? So let's continue with this live stream and have a bit more fun. Additional details about Solomon's flying carpet can be found in Arabic literature, where Solomon is represented as having power over spirits, animals, wind, and water, all of which obeyed his orders by virtue of a magic ring set upon with the 4 jewels given to him by the angels that had power over these 4 realms. The author of the Quran devoted a considerable section of the surah, I guess, 27th. The Surah the 27th. They said it's a part of the book of the Surah. I guess the 27th chapter or something like that, Surah 27th, to the correspondence that passed between the queens of Sheba and King Solomon. The eminent Egyptologist Sir E.A. Wallace Budge writes. Here's what E.A. Wallace Budge writes about the King Solomon and the flying carpet. Among the many gifts that God bestowed upon Solomon were the understanding of the speech of birds and knowledge of every kind. Okay, not just the flying carpet, but the ring and the knowledge about the 4 winds and the elements and other such things, and other magical knowledge. Yeah. Among the many gifts that God bestowed upon Solomon were the understanding of the speech of birds and knowledge of every kind. He was the Lord of men, genii, and birds. When he traveled through the air on his magical carpet of green silk, which he was borne aloft by the wind, according to the king's direction, the men stood on the right of it, and the spirits on the left, and a vast army of birds of every kind kept flying over their carpet to protect its occupants from the heat of the sun. Very Very interesting right there. So King Solomon had this magical carpet, and people, and he was a lord of, well, both the men and the spirits, and even the birds. But it didn't really protect him from the high winds that would knock the men off the carpet, did it? Either way, interesting story. So let's continue with this article. One of these birds was the lapwing, which told Solomon about the kingdom of Sheba, ruled over by a beautiful and powerful queen named Bilqis. This began a series of correspondence between Solomon and Bilqis that eventually persuaded Bilqis to come to Jerusalem with gifts in order to test the wisdom of Solomon by means of a series of riddles. As per the Kebra Nekrast, the Ethiopian national saga translated from Arabic in 1322 CE, the Queen of Sheba, whose Ethiopian name was Makeda, spent a long time in Jerusalem, and on being instructed by Solomon, she converted to Judaism. On returning to Ethiopia, Makeda gave birth to Solomon's son, Menelik the first, from whom the Ethiopian dynasty claims descent till the present day. Okay. The Visit of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon, oil on canvas by Sir Edward J. Poynter, 1890. Source: Art Gallery of New South Wales, Australia, public domain. That's pretty much all we know about Solomon's flying carpet from various historical sources. Now we need to grapple with this rather difficult question of whether there is any historical merit to these tales, or if they were all invented at a later date to glorify the wise ruler. A rather unusual academic paper on these lines, titled The Secret History of the Flying Carpet, was published by Zir Abida in the Southwest Review and Journal in 2006. He wrote that a French explorer named Henry Bagge had found the 13th century Persian scrolls in the underground cellars of a castle near Elamat, Iran. The manuscript was translated from Persian into English by the renowned linguist Professor C.G.D. Septimus, written by a Jewish scholar named Isaac ben Sherira. The scrolls made the astonishing claim that flying carpets were woven and sold till the late 13th century CE, but the clientele of these carpets were at the fringe of respectable society, since Muslim rulers looked upon flying carpets as devil-inspired contraptions. As per Ben Sharia, the flying carpet of King Solomon was sent to him by Queen Sheba. Azir Abida writes in his paper that at the inauguration of the queen in 977 BC, her alchemist royal, a Talmudist, demonstrated small brown rugs that could hover a few feet above the ground. Many years later, she sent a magnificent flying carpet to King Solomon, a token of love. It was of Queen Sindel. It was of Queen Sindel, embroidered with gold and silver and studded with precious stones, and its length and breadth were such that all of the king's host could stand upon it. The king, who was preoccupied with building his temple in Jerusalem, could not receive the gift and gave it to his courtiers, who when news of this cool reception reached the queen, she was heartbroken. She dismissed her artisans and never had anything to do with flying carpets again. Ben Sharia goes on to make a number of extraordinary claims about flying carpets. According to him, the Great Library of Alexandria, founded by Ptolemy I, kept a large stock of flying carpets for his readers. They could borrow these carpets in exchange for their slippers to glide back and forth up and down among the shelves of papyrus manuscripts. Now, isn't that neat? It seems to me that Ben Sharia just stopped short of claiming that when the Library of Alexandria was destroyed, most of the flying carpets were secretly taken to the Hogwarts Castle of Britain, where they are still safely hidden away from the prying eyes of muggles. Might as well be, folks, because that is certainly, I can see why he basically wrote this down like this. Might as well be as outlandish as that, because that certainly is an outlandish story that in the Great Library of Alexandria, they used flying carpets to basically search the shelves of manuscripts for knowledge. So yeah, if I can't imagine from that saying that, you might as well say when the Library of Alexandria was destroyed, that all these carpets were taken to Hogwarts, because it is an outlandish story. I mean, it's not that they actually written down that they were taking to Hogwarts, because that is a fictional place. I'm just saying is, well, considering how outlandish this story is, I could imagine it basically them actually turning up at Hogwarts, for God's sakes. That I can imagine, because it is that outlandish a story. Either way, let's continue reading now. Bin Sharia wrote that the use of flying carpets by the general populace came to an end in the mid 8th century when a young scholar of Baghdad eloped with the royal princess on his flying carpet. This event instigated the furious sultan to hunt down and destroy all traders and artisans involved in the business of flying carpets. Sounds like Aladdin here basically caused a great destruction of created a great destruction of flying carpets. Literally, this literally sounds like we're just reading about Aladdin, basically with Princess Jasmine, and then flying away. This caused her father to go nuts and start destroying flying carpets left and right. Is the fact, could this actually be true, folks? Is the reason why we don't have magical flying carpets in the modern world is because this guy basically pissed off the Sultan, and anyone who basically could make these flying carpets was killed? Is that what happened? Because from the story, it does seem like it, doesn't it? But it's still an outlandish story, but still an interesting one to read through. So let's continue with it. This event instigated the furious sultan to hunt down and destroy all traitors. Apparently, Bin Sharia, and this was part of what Bin Sharia wrote, that the use of flying carpets by the general populace came to an end in the mid-8th century when a young soldier of Baghdad eloped with the royal princess on his flying carpet. This caused the king to go nuts and basically start destroying all traders and artisans involved in the business of flying carpets. There was a brief resurgence in 1213 CE when Prince Feroz of the state of Khorassan in eastern Persia got their 24 flying. Let me try that again. Got 24 woven flying carpets made by his father-in-law and positioned a squadron of archers on them to form the world's first airborne cavalry. But the invasions of Genghis Khan in 1226 put the final nail in the coffin in the history of this magical contraption. Genghis Khan ordered all flying carpets in the kingdom to be confiscated and burnt, apparently because he wanted his sons and soldiers on the saddle and not on the carpet. So is that true as well, folks? It's another outlandish story told about famous figures in history. So take that with a grain of salt. It could just be a legend about Genghis Khan, but still very interesting story. Either way, interestingly, Bin Sharia even gave particulars of the technique that the artisans employed to weave the flying carpets. Apparently, the ancient Persian artisans superheated a particular type of clay, which then acquired anti-magnetic properties. Then they dyed the wool in this clay before weaving them into a carpet. The magnetized fibers of the carpet hovered above the ground, being repelled by the Earth's magnetic field. Propulsion went along the magnetic lines of the Earth, which acted like aerial rails. Woo! A lot of ancient science right there. But is any of it true? Very unlikely. If flying carpets were a dime a dozen, they would have appeared in many historical anecdotes of antiquity, whereas we hear about them only in relation to King Solomon, and much later in the 1001 Nights, which were clearly fables that were composed of, to entertain and to convey moral lessons. Besides, even in the 1001 Nights, a flying carpet was regarded as a rare and precious commodity. Yeah. Pardon me. If we assume that the 13th century Persian scrolls are genuine, for it would be quite silly to hoax them, considering that scrolls can be easily carbon dated, it means that Bin Sharia had fabricated stories in order to justify the existence of flying carpets. Does that mean that the flying carpet of King Solomon was purely imaginary? I don't think so. There wouldn't have been so many ancient sources of Jewish, Arabic, and Ethiopian writing about King Solomon's flying carpet. Yeah, but folks, you got to understand, in history, if people don't like certain parts of history about certain people, you can see this in Egypt, they tend to basically erase these people from history or even things. So basically, if flying carpets were thought of as demon contraptions, I can very well imagine that people basically outlawing the stories of these carpets and then destroying all evidence of them ever existing. So maybe people were going around and flying carpets, and that knowledge of how to make them was lost over the centuries. I'm just saying that, folks. It's possible that knowledge has been purposely lost by people who tried to bury it. So maybe flying carpets are one of these things that was purposely lost. Before I continue with the article, either way, let's continue now. Yeah. So writing about King Solomon's flying carpet, if there wasn't a grain of truth to it. Yeah. Yeah. Where was it? Yeah. Where was I? Yeah. Writing about King Solomon's flying carpet, if there wasn't a grain of truth in it. However, the flying carpet may not really have been a carpet, but something else altogether. Here's where we come to the really weird out there stuff, folks. So let's continue. A clue to the real nature of King Solomon's carpet is hidden in Bin Sharia's fabricated manuscript. Azir Abidi writes in his paper, but there is one episode witnessed by many people on the ground. There are a party of turbaned men flew from, Samarkand to Isfahan at whirlwind speed. This incident is corroborated in the facsimile of another rare text produced in the 17th century, in which one witness is quoted as saying, "We saw a strange whirling disc in the sky." Sounds like a flying saucer. Yeah. This story was told in an old legend Yeah. So a clue is this came from a clue to the real nature of the King Solomon's carpet is hidden in Bin Sharia's fabricated manuscript, Azir Abedi. So this story comes from with the possible flying saucer here comes from this book Azir Abedi, or should I say from a fabricated manuscript? Huh? Yeah. Either way, Azir Abidi writes in his paper. I mean, I made a mistake there, folks. I said the book was named Azir Abidi. No, this guy basically found this possible fabricated manuscript, but it does mention in the fabricated manuscript that there was a circular disc that looks like very much like a flying saucer. So very weird. Let me go over here, folks. We have 7 watching. That's pretty good. We have 8 watching. And we have 9 watching. Another tremendously great live stream, folks. So thank you for tuning in to the latest live stream I'm doing, where we're talking about King Solomon and the flying carpet. So let's continue. Let's see. We read this part, folks, so maybe I'll just start from the beginning here. A clue to the real nature of King Solomon's carpet is hidden in Bin Sharia's fabricated manuscript. Azir Abidi writes in his paper, but there is one episode witnessed by many people on the ground. As I said, folks, Azir Abidi writes about this fabricated manuscript. It was witnessed by many people on the ground, where a party of turbaned men flew from Samarkand to Isfahan at whirlwind speed. This incident is corroborated in the facsimile of another rare text produced in the 17th century, in which one witness is quoted as saying, "We saw a strange whirling disc in the sky, which flew over our village, Nizapur, trailing fire and sulfur. A strange whirling disc indeed. In other words, what we refer to as a UFO or flying saucer. Eyewitness accounts of UFOs from around the world describe them as spherical or disc-shaped metallic objects decorated with rows of lights and the underside. If the metallic underside of a UFO reflects the green vegetation of the earth when flying overhead, then it would closely resemble the flying carpet of King Solomon, which was said to be made of green silk and embroidered with gold and precious stones." I would say so, folks. It appears to me that the flying carpets of the ancient legends were really UFOs. There is no reason to believe that the UFO phenomenon has begun recently. King Solomon was probably one of the earliest UFO passengers of the world. Not the first one, though, since UFOs or Vimānas have been described in the ancient texts of India, which go back 7,000 BCE. Now that we think about it, it makes far more sense for a monarch to ride a UFO than a carpet. Imagine King Solomon arriving at his destination drenched in a thunder shower, his hair an absolute mess due to the high-speed winds, and in the unfortunate case of winter rains, shivering in a half-frozen state with icicles dangling from his beard. That would have caused a big dent in his glamour and reputation. On the other hand, a ride on an alien craft would have been speedy, comfortable, and awe-inspiring. Firstly, we need to ask, how did Solomon get to ride a UFO whenever he desired? Probably because he ruled over demons and spirits, who in Arabic literature referred to as the genies. The jinns were involved in most of Solomon's public works, such as the building of temples, mining of precious materials, etc., and accompanied Solomon on his UFO in Islamic belief. The jinns were created long before man and have very long lifespans. They live in a parallel dimension hidden from us. Mostly, though, they are said to inhabit ruins, graveyards, hills. Ruins, graveyards, and hills, caves, and deep tunnels, much like the cryptoterrestrials of fairy lore, folks. Or should I say the fairies of cryptoterrestrial lore. Either way, they inhabit graveyards, hills, caves, and deep tunnels, all of which are inaccessible to us. The meaning of the word djinn in Arabic is hidden from view. The djinns cannot only remain invisible to us, they can also shapeshift into any form of their choice. As per the Prophet of Muhammad, certain kinds of djinns have wings and can fly through the air. Also, every person has a djinn appointed to be his constant companion, who can lure us into evil acts or save us from trouble. While benevolent djinns reward people for good acts, malevolent ones have been known to possess people and drive them insane. Here's pictures of djinns. Yeah, the Black King of the djinns from the 14th century in Kadab al-Budin. Okay, you see it right there, folks. Looks rather cool, don't you think, folks? Okay, let me go back over here now. We have 8 watching. That's good. We have 9 watching. We have 10 people watching. Another tremendously great live stream, folks. Keep with me while we continue and read through the rest of this article about the flying carpet and King Solomon. In case you are wondering how the djinns are tied up with the UFO phenomenon, my answer is very intimately. The djinns correspond to the fairy folk of European legends, who comprise a large ensemble of magical creatures such as elves, dwarves, fairies, etc. The dwarfs in particular were believed to be very clever and capable of building magical gadgets. In many UFO sightings, dwarf humanoid beings dressed in silver suits have been reported. UFOs have also been seen diving into oceans and water bodies, such as lakes and sea notes, which could be the points of entry into the underworld bases of these supernatural beings. I had discussed in an earlier article that in Hopi lore, the Kashinas are underworld spirits who enter to the Hopi prayers for health, rain, and crops. They ride around in flying shields, having 2 parts, a lower part which spins and an upper part that remains still. The Hopi say that the Kashinas had emerged with them from their underground shelters at the beginning of the Fourth World and gave guidance to the clans during their migrations. Okay, that is intriguing, isn't it, folks? All of this suggests that a significant fraction of the modern day UFO phenomenon can be attributed to various classes of subterrestrial beings that were known by different names: Kashina, djinns, fairies, dwarfs, elves, etc. It appears from the ancient Jewish and elves. It appears from the ancient and Arabic accounts that all the djinns had great respect for Solomon, for his wisdom, and possibly also for being the son of David. That's probably why they obeyed his commands and conducted him around in one of their spacecrafts, which gave rise to the legend of Solomon's flying carpet. The rulers who came after Solomon apparently did not command the respect and obedience of the djinns. And over time, the story of Solomon's aerial adventures passed in the realm of fantasies and myths. Okay, that's the end of the article. So what do you think about that, folks? Very out there story, and certainly well worth our time to look at tonight. What do you make of it, folks? Yeah, we have 7 watching. We have 8 watching. We have 9 still watching us. Yeah, that's a great live stream, folks. What do you make about King Solomon? Well, I should say the flying carpet and King Solomon. Do you think that King Solomon actually rode around in a spacecraft created by magical fairies? It's not that out there, folks. If you look at some of the legends that actually abound in mythology, as well in our more modern world, not just UFO lore, but maybe the UFO mythology around it. Yeah, certainly the stories we know about certainly the stories we talk about these fairies and elves and alien beings, how they all seem related to each other. And is it possible that King Solomon, possibly maybe because he was I guess, if you believe in some of the stories about alien hybrids, do you suppose he was an alien hybrid appointed to basically rule over, or at least in his own mind at least, rule over these supposed demons and fairies and elves and djinns, that he was basically commanded them? Could it be that these beings allowed them to basically command them because he was some sort of alien hybrid? Maybe they wanted to make him believe he was some sort of highly, make him believe he was some sort of a great king of men. And they basically abided by his rules because it was all part of their plan for making alien hybrids. Maybe they obeyed his commands because they wanted him to believe that they wanted him to believe something. They wanted him to basically believe that he was doing God's work and that all he was doing was for God's will. It was all God's will. But in reality, maybe they were obeying his commands and basically flying around because it was all part of their own plan. They would basically make alien hybrids and basically make I guess either to rule over the human race, or maybe to improve the human race, or maybe some other esoteric or maybe other weird plan that they had come up with. Could it be that maybe King Solomon basically obeyed these beings because And maybe they also made flying carpets for other great rulers of mankind, because these other beings, these other kings and queens, were also alien hybrids. Yeah, because you got to understand the old legends. You got to let me try it a bit easier. I'm getting a bit out there, and my words are slurring, because you got to believe that a lot of people say that people of royal blood who exist today, they're actually alien hybrids, that they're reptilians or other alien beings, and that are hybridized with human beings thousands of years ago, and that it's their plan to once again rule the world through one way or another. If you believe any of these old legends and stories, or even modern day stories about this sort of phenomenon, folks. So I was saying, is it possible that King Solomon was some sort of maybe not quite human being, and he was set up as the ruler of this of these various countries because it was all part of some sort of alien plan? Maybe it was a plan of God, or maybe it was some sort of other plan by other beings we do not know about. That's what I'm saying, folks. Could it be that that's why these beings, these alien or maybe demon beings, or the jinns or other names, whatever you want to call them, that's why they obeyed King Solomon and other rulers of men, other kings and queens? Maybe it was maybe it was all part of some huge plan or other. That's what I'm trying to say, folks. Could it be that maybe these beings basically made King Solomon believe he was doing God's work? It was all because he was falling into their plan. He was following their scheme. Again, it was all part of some big, huge plan that would basically change the entire human race. Maybe. I don't know. Certainly, I think we need more information on this, but it's weird that all these stories about kings and queens and other weird myths and fables, they all have myths that could basically correspond to modern UFO mythology or other supernatural stories that basically exist in our own modern world. Yeah. So is it possible that there is some sort of connection? That's what I'm saying. Either way, folks, we're at the end of this live stream, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics. They're bad for you. I'm going to have to end it now, folks. Yeah. There in the title is misspelled. It's THERE. It's there, not there, as it's supposed to be spelled. Use the link on the pinned tweet on my Twitter page at 777megachris1 if you want to watch this stream again, folks. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. Now, folks, please go over and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. I meant to say, go and subscribe to Dark Sayings on YouTube and on BitChute. Dark Sayings does short videos on high strangeness, but he also does live streams around 10 o'clock p.m. at night, where he talks about ghosts, monsters, cryptids, all the weird things that go bump in the night. And every time you watch one of Dark Sayings live streams, you learn something new about the world of the paranormal. So go subscribe to Dark Sayings on YouTube and on BitChute. Then go and subscribe to Robot Co-op. Robot Co-op is like Mystery Science Theater 3000. You know that old TV show that roasts bad movies, with that guy who's basically stranded in outer space with his two robot companions, who are really just robot puppets, but they tell jokes and they roast bad movies? Well, if you like that show, then you're going to love Robot Co-op. Now, they basically sit around and play video games. They're a video game live streaming channel, but they have fun with these robot puppets they have in their own show, and they basically tell jokes and have fun. This guy roasts these games they're playing, but they're usually playing some great games, and you have some fun watching them play them. You're going to love their horror game live streams on Sunday on Twitch, folks, because they're just fun as hell as they play horror games and just generally have a great time. In fact, watching their live streams, it's like being at a party. You just sit back, eat something or drink something, and have a great time watching these people as they basically have fun. So go subscribe to Robot Co-op on YouTube and on Twitch. Then go and subscribe to Stitched Together Picks. Stitched Together Picks is a horror movie review channel hosted by the maniacal cinephile, who has more than one personality. So you're not just getting one character, you're getting a whole lot of them, and all of them are fun. So go subscribe to Stitched Together Picks on YouTube. Now, folks, down in the descriptions or in the chat, I left links to Rumble. Let me try that again. To YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, or BitChute, as well as Dark Sayings, Robot Co-op, or Stitched Together Picks. Use all those links to go subscribe to them, but especially use them to go subscribe to my own channels, because you got to remember, folks, I upload 2 exclusive videos a day to Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, or BitChute. If you want them, and you really do, folks, because I upload 2 exclusive videos a day to Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, or BitChute. So please go subscribe to me. Now, folks, I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. I hope you enjoyed today's live stream. My next one will be even better than this one, so make sure to come back again then. So please subscribe to me on any channel, and please come back again, folks, because my next live stream will be even better. So until then, folks, I'll see you all again soon. So bye. Yeah. Bye, folks.